What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Sunshine Cup once again, and the team that we're going to be taking a look at today is Shadow Jumpluff, Shadow Quagsire, and Magcargo. Now, this team is apparently triple weak to Cradily, so obviously I've included battles where we beat Cradily in these games. And before we hop into the battles, I want to say a special thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel, Benny Hemlock, Dr. Green Mustache, and Soham Patil, as well as the legend trainer members on this channel, Big Burden, Andrew Pitton, Musachu, Noodleman, and Speedster. So without further ado, let's hop into some battles. Alright, Jumpluff into Blaziken. This is a good lead, even though it's a grass versus fire. We have a pacing advantage, and their counters are resisted, whereas our fairy winds are neutral. So we're going to outpace, make it to an aerial ace. Blaziken is extremely glassy, so they're very likely to shield even from a shadow aerial ace Jumpluff. So the opponent does shield it up, they're going to fire back with Blaze Kick, but we always will be able to outpace. So my opponent instead pivots into their Hippowdon. Now this is an Ice Fang Hippowdon, so Ice Fang Hippowdon will be met with the Shadow Quagsire. They do make it to a Scorching Sands, but I think I can go for a one shield farm down and come out loaded with energy on the Quagsire, and that's exactly what I do. In comes a Quagsire of their own, and now Quagsire is going to be met with an onslaught of Aqua Tails coming their way. Of course, they are the non-Shadow Quagsire, so they can take these a little bit more comfortably, but we're going to get to quite a few of these unless they throw their energy, which is why I'm going to pivot back into my Jumpluff because I don't want to concede a farm down. I'm going to go for a aerial ace and undercharge it. As soon as I undercharge, my opponent knows they're getting farmed down, so they will just resign the match. Tough lead in the next match, we've got Magcargo. So where do I go from here? I'm going to throw one Fairy Wind and pivot into my Quagsire. Now, of course, the opponent is going to have an answer to the Quagsire, but coming into your own Magcargo down energy is also not a good plan. So here comes the Stone Edge. We actually grab a shield from the opponent, and that's really all we need in this matchup. I'm now going to let this go no matter what. It will be enough to pick up the knockout, acrobatics, or energy ball, and it does, and now in comes Magcargo. Magcargo is a complete wall to energy from the Jumpluff, and I think I can go for an entire Incinerate farm down and come absolutely loaded with energy, which is why my opponent pivots into a Flygon. Flygon now will be met with the Jumpluff. Jumpluff, of course, has super effective Fairy Winds in this matchup, and we will be able to pick up the knockout with an Aerial Ace. I farm up to the absolute max, throwing at the very last second without throwing on CMP. That picks up the knockout. What's going to come in here? It's going to be the Magcargo. Now, I can't get to an acrobatics plus an aerial ace, so I'm just going to settle for double aerial ace. But my opponent actually respects the acrobatics, which is kind of surprising, or maybe they were respecting an energy ball. But either way, we get some decent chip. My opponent is now at the back-to-back Rock Tombs, but I get there on the exact same time, throwing on CMP, which means they're only going to get one of these because this Rock Tomb, even though it's debuffed, should be enough to pick up the knockout on the opposing Magcargo. And now we've got Magcargo into their Jumpluff. All I have to do is make it to a Rock Tomb. My opponent is able to outpace, but whether they're at the back-to-back moves does not matter. Magcargo wins CMP in this matchup. We are at the Rock Tomb. They're not even at a second charge move. And Rock Tomb from this range, it's super effective damage. It'll pick up the knockout on the Jumpluff. And despite a tough lead, we are able to take the win. Into the next match, good lead. We've got Jumpluff into Flygon, and the opponent is staying in this matchup. So clearly something weak in the back. I will full send the acrobatics in case the opponent tries to let this go, and they actually do commit the shield. Aerial Ace is actually not enough to pick up the knockout from that range, despite the super effective Fairy Winds. They will just bait with a Dragon Claw, and that means in order to outpace, I'll have to throw in kind of awkward timing in order to get off this Aerial Ace. However, that means the opponent can live on 1 HP, get off a Dragon Claw, and this will do some solid chip, but we are able to win the one shield scenario. In comes a Dunsparce. Dunsparce unable to pick up the knockout with 2 rollouts because of the nerf in previous seasons. That means we're able to connect with a aerial ace there, and we come in with our Quagsire, and there is an Obstagoon in the back. So another matchup where our Magcargo doesn't really have anywhere to go, similarly to that Blaziken matchup that we had in the first match. So what I'm going to do is basically just sacrifice it here. One cross chop actually doesn't do that much damage. So I think I'm just going to commit to the full Incinerate farm down and come out load with energy. I think they're in 2 Incinerate farm down range. As long as they don't get the boost, we should be okay, and they do not. We get the full Incinerate farm down, come out with back-to-back Rock Tombs, which is absolutely massive because that means we should be able to survive that rollout, connect with another Rock Tomb. This will probably grab the final shield from my opponent, and it does. And now we're in a zero shield scenario, but my opponent is so debuffed that look at how much a drill run does. That is absolutely nothing. My opponent sees the damage, and they just instantly resign the match. Jumpluff into Furret. So this is a pretty good lead. This is a matchup that we win, I think, in the zeros and the ones, I would imagine. But my opponent is going to throw on CMP exactly when I get to the acrobatics. However, I am baiting with an aerial ace because this will do massive damage to the Furret, and I don't believe that they're going to want to let that go. So there's an aerial ace bait. I do throw it on the CMP tie. I'm going to throw the second charge move, the actual acrobatics, on the CMP tie as well. My opponent obviously counting very well because they're throwing exactly when I get there. But that's fine because we got the successful bait and we connected with a acrobatics, which means now we can pivot into our Quagsire, try to get the water gun farm down. In comes a Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff now will be met with a neutral Stone Edge, but this will do massive damage. It puts them at 1 HP. We get the water gun farm down. That is absolutely massive, and is a Quagsire of their own. So another matchup where our Magcargo has absolutely nowhere to go because the Wigglytuff was aligned on our Quagsire. So this is going to be an extremely difficult matchup. Where do we go here? A 1 HP Jumpluff or a full HP Magcargo that can get fully water gun down? I'm just going to let this go. I basically need to overheat my opponent in order to win this game. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to make a risky play. I'm going to overfarm. We get the, we watch for the catch. They go for it. We come out with an overheat loaded. Overheat, it's resisted, but nobody told Magcargo that, and we are able to take the win. Magcargo, Jumpluff into Quagsire. This is a good lead. My opponent's going to safe switch into a Furret, and so I'm going to chip with an aerial ace before I get out into my Magcargo. Now my Magcargo, of course, doesn't really have a fantastic matchup here if they're on Brick Break. However, if they're on Trailblaze, it's not terrible, and my opponent is on Trailblaze. I am going to throw the Rock Tomb right away. And I believe I'm going to go for a slight undercharge here. My opponent does actually commit the shield, which means now they're going to be able to get to 2 charge moves here. So I kind of have to decide whether I want switch or not. And I think I do. So I'm going to commit the shield, which means I'm going to have to commit the double shield. However, that means I'll come out with an overheat loaded, and I can throw the overheat at the Quagsire that comes back in, and this will do some really solid chip, so nothing I'm too worried about. Then as soon as that lands, I'm like, wait a minute, I can get the full water gun farm down, and if they don't have an answer to my Quagsire in the back, then this game is over. So in comes Quagsire. I get a nice energy lead. I've saved my Jumpluff for later. Can I get the full farm down? It's going to be close, and I can. That is absolutely massive. What's in the back? It's a Talonflame. Talonflame now will be met with the Aquatail. Aquatail number 1 gets shielded. Can I get to the Stone Edge? It's going to be close, and no, I can't. I should have just settled for the Aquatail, and have I thrown away this game? They're 1 Incinerate off of the Brave Bird, but I'm going to overfarm here, expecting them to watch out for the catch, and then go for the catch, and I get it. That is absolutely massive. They overfarm by 1. We still got the catch. Fly picks up the knockout. Can we pick up a knockout with an acrobatics? They're now at another Fly, and Fly is super effective damage. It would pick up the knockout. Acrobatics KOs the Talonflame, and just like that, we're able to recover off of a mistake. Into next match, Rhyperior on the lead. This is an absolutely insane lead, and we have absolutely no coverage into this thing. However, my opponent doesn't know that yet, so I'm going to bait with an aerial ace first, expecting my opponent to commit the shield, and they do, and that's a huge shield call. They have farmed up, I think, to the Rock Wrecker, so I will shield this right back. It is a breaking swipe bait, which is pretty unfortunate, but they throw right away, which means this can only be a breaking swipe. So I will just let this go. Breaking swipe number 2 does connect. We're still in the green health. These mud slaps are triple resisted. So here comes an acrobatics now. That lands. That does pretty solid damage to the Shadow Rhyperior despite it being resisted. Here now comes an aerial ace, and this should be enough to pick up the knockout on the Rhyperior. What's in the back? It is a Breloom, and if Breloom is your best response to a Jumpluff up energy, then you have another thing coming, because here comes an aerial ace. That's double super effective damage. My opponent is actually forced to commit the shield, and even though I threw on poor timing there, I should be able to outpace, pick up the knockout with an aerial ace. An aerial ace, like I said, double super effective damage, and Breloom is insanely gassy. It picks up the knockout, and it's a chestnut in the back. So not only is my opponent triple weak to ice, they're triple weak to Jumpluff at that. So Jumpluff does connect with an aerial ace. I'm going to just keep farming because my opponent is going to be forced to throw energy. These Vine Whips are double resisted. They finally pick up the knockout with the Frenzy Plant, but they're in one Incinerate farm down range. So in comes Magcargo, we get the Incinerate farm down range, and we're basically able to 1v3 with Jump Bluff. Where are all these Breloons coming from? Into the next match, another Breloom, and they're ABA weak to Jump Bluff once again. I saw so many teams ABA weak to Jump Bluff, just disrespecting this Pokemon as a whole, which is why I decided to run it. I'm able to connect with the Aerial Ace, and now in comes Quagsire. Quagsire can take a Shadow Scorching Sands here, even despite its stab damage. It's not enough to pick up the knockout. I let them connect with one more Dragon Tail before I Water Gun farm them down, which means they get less energy. My opponent realizes they don't have a win con, so they just resign the match. Another good lead. Jump Bluff into Quagsire. They're going to save switch into Talonflame, and I'm going to come in with Magcargo here. Now, you might be wondering, why are you coming in with Magcargo as opposed to your Quagsire? Because Quagsire is water, can just Water Gun farm them down. But Magcargo is a complete wall to Talonflame, and they have a Quagsire on the lead, so I'm basically just sacrificing this Pokemon and going to connect with the Overheat. I'm actually not able to get the Overheat somehow, but that's fine. I will respect a Stone Edge here. It is massive super effective damage from a Shadow, and in comes a Gligar. So a good read for me, because had I sent in the Quagsire, I would have into the Talonflame, I would have had a poor matchup with my Magcargo into the Gligar, because Dig would be double super effective damage. I end up overfarming a little bit too much, playing to the CMP tie and losing the CMP tie. I can survive the Aerial Ace, but Aqua Tail now will be able to connect. These Water Guns doing pretty massive damage, and yes, they weren't able to bait out the water, but they are still able to win switch in that matchup, even with us using Water Gun. That said, I'm able to grab the final shield from my opponent. I can't really commit a shield here because a Shadow Stone Edge will do way more damage than a super effective Aerial Ace from a non-Shadow Gligar. So I let that go. I pick up the knockout with the Aerial Ace, and now I just have to make it to an Acrobatics in order to win this game. My opponent knows they can't get to an Aqua Tail plus a Stone Edge before I get to the Acrobatics, so they just resign the match. Here's the Cradily we were talking about. Triple weak to this Pokemon, by the way. This one, I mean, of course, it is on Bullet Seed, so that helps. They are able to outpace, though, and I will just let this go. Rock Tomb does some pretty respectable damage, but it's not enough to pick up the knockout. It's going to take two. So now I'm going to bait. I'm going to go for the Aerial Ace. My opponent actually will let that go, so now I'm going to full send the Acrobatics. This will do some pretty solid chip, and then I'm going to expect my opponent to overfarm by 1 to throw on good timing, and I go for the Rock Tomb catch, but I'm unsuccessful. My opponent does not throw their energy, they hold on to it, which means now they can fire off a Grass Knot against my Quagsire, but I'm able to shield that and get the full farm down. What's in the back? It's a Talonflame, and if Talonflame is your best answer to a Quagsire up energy, then you've got something wrong in the back. I imagine it's double fire, which means it's probably Magcargo in the back. So even though I played to a CMP tie by accident, I'm going to commit the shield because I'm expecting my opponent is double weak to this in the back. They end up committing the shield, which pretty much confirms that they are super weak to the Quagsire in the back. I'm going to fire off another Aqua Tail. Not going to get there, so I'm just going to sacrifice my Jump Bluff, because if they have a Magcargo in the back, I'm not going to need my Jump Bluff. They full send the Brave Bird. I'm going to come in with my Magcargo so that my opponent, because they get one turn switch, we are able to outpace, make it to a Rock Tomb first, and that connects, which means this game is over because we would be able to outpace, and we are able to take that game. Into, I believe, the final match of the video, we've got Jump Bluff into Swampert. Now, this is kind of an awkward matchup because of their pacing advantage here. They are able to make it to a Sludge, but at the same time, I'm able to make it to an Aerial Ace. They're going to connect with a Sludge and then come in with a Furret. Now, Furret will be met with a Acrobatics. This is massive damage. They're going to shield that up. In comes the Magcargo. And Magcargo, of course, can take a Trailblaze, no problem. It's a swift catch instead somehow. My opponent ended up throwing on alignment like right as they got there to the move, which is fantastic. I'm now going to go for a Rock Tomb and an Undercharge. Now, why am I going for the Undercharge? That's because they have to get to 2 Trailblazes here, and they're not going to get there because of one I threw. So, unfortunately, I would have gotten the full farm down. So my opponent realizes this. They pivot into their Swampert. Swampert now will be met with a Rock Tomb. That connects. That puts them in Aerial Ace range, which means I pivot back into my Jump Bluff. I'm able to outpace, make it to the Aerial Ace. That picks up the knockout, and what's in the back? It's a Jump Bluff. And have I just sold this game? Because I can only make it to 1 charge move here. I'm making it to the Acrobatics, then they shield that up. That is Really unfortunate. I'm farming. They're going to get to a charge move. I have nowhere to go here. I just have a Water Gun Quagsire and a Magcargo in the red. I think I need to connect with one more Incinerate to put them in Stone Edge range, and we have a 2-shield advantage. So I'm going to come in with my Magcargo, but they throw right away. I think that's okay because now they're virtually energy dry. So I'm going to come in with my Quagsire. They have a very high incentive to bait. However, I'm still going to commit the shield. I basically just have to watch for a catch in this matchup, and I should be able to make it to a Stone Edge before they're able to get 2 back-to-back moves. I'm watching for it. I see the Fairy Wind go through. So now here comes a Stone Edge. This is super effective damage. It picks up the knockout on the jump left. We would be able to Water Gun, farm down the Furret, and we are able to take that win. So a bunch of matchups where we were kind of in a tough situation with both of our answers eliminated in the matchups, and then having just to answer with a hard counter from my opponent, and we were still able to take those wins because we just had that shield advantage. So that is the importance of shield advantage, and that's kind of what I like about this meta specifically. Is yes, it's a little bit RPS, but you'll notice, I mean, I had my Quagsire on a jump left. I had, what was it, a Quagsire on my Magcargo. Like these are matchups that you should never be able to win, but with the shield advantage, you can actually pick up wins. So just keep that in mind. It's not all RPS. You can climb with these ABC style teams, even if you don't get the alignment that you need. One thing I will say is that the reason I ran Quagsire on this team is because I was seeing a jump in Clodsire. Now, Clodsire, of course, is a core breaker to the Jump Left Magcargo core. However, as soon as I started running Quagsire, I never saw a Clodsire. That said, if I were going to run this team again, I would probably just run Miltank as the safe swap instead of Quagsire. That way you have a better answer to a Abomasnow if you see one on the lead. And because that's workable with the Jump Left plus Magcargo core, but with Quagsire it makes it pretty tough. So maybe Miltank, of course, that kind of drops your answer to having a Clodsire answer. Obviously you'd run it with Body Slam and Ice Beam for this meta, but yeah, that's gonna be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.